So I've adapted this presentation from a webinar that I have called How to Network Without Feeling Stalkery. So we're going to talk about, again, revisit what are the job search essentials, because that is essentially where you should be playing right now as far as career searching goes. What is networking, the benefits of it, the different types of networking events, getting your LinkedIn set up. So I'll tell you everything you need to know to restart yours or to upgrade what you already have. And then throughout, I'll be talking about some different best practices, and then we'll have time for questions at the end. So like I said, just save those questions for the end. We'll catch up with those if I haven't already answered them. So our job search essentials are our toolkit for career navigation. They're the pieces of your job search that you need to have. First thing, obviously, is resumes, and we've talked about that. Second thing is cover letters. You may not be thinking of that until you're actually ready to apply, but there's some information on the Job Search Essentials Part 1 webinar. And if you have something that you want me to look at, just put them in the shared folder and I'll check them out. Our LinkedIn profile in today's job search is an essential part of career navigation. And then a networking strategy. And I include this in here because maybe it's not quite tangible, but it is essential, I believe, to having a job search that doesn't take forever and doesn't drive you crazy. So these are all pictures of networking. Networking doesn't necessarily mean a room of people who are handing out business cards. Networking is just anytime you're in a place, virtually or in person, where you have opportunities to meet other people who might share your same interests. You might just be having meetups with people who are mutually beneficial to each other. It's just getting to know people and it's building relationships. So the first thing you can do to get more comfortable with networking is take the pressure off of it. It isn't about getting your foot in the door. It isn't about having someone do something for you or counting how many business cards you hand out. It's really just about building relationships with people who you might like to know in the future and who might like to look back. And so the benefits are that, typically they're free or inexpensive. It might be something you have to pay to go to a small get together or an event, or maybe it's, the Tech Garden has their Genius Awards. That's networking. Lots of networking happens at those kinds of things. So go to industry events. And it is still, has been, always the best, most effective way to get into a job. And it's not really who you know. It could be who you're going to know is the key. And then it's just really about building long-lasting relationships. The more people you can know now, you don't know if the person's going to help you get your next job, your third job, or maybe they're not helping you with a job, but some other thing. They might be someone who just refers you to your next real estate agent. So building a network is more than just finding someone who can submit a resume for you or vouch for you in a job. So we've obviously got our in-person types of networking, if we could remember what those sort of look like. And they're often held by member-driven associations. So that's why one of the things that might go into your networking strategy is joining some sort of association or networking group or meetup group that has member-driven events. You can go to student groups. Probably most of you might not be looking at student groups, but maybe you could go mentor at a student group and meet other people in academics. They often happen at a workplace or other location. Originally, this was for students, so we've got the internship location, but you can think of, again, events that happen at the Tech Garden, maybe a drone event that happens here because we've got a lot of drone tech happening. So you want to be plugged in and know when those things are happening because, again, it's not going to be called a networking event. It's just going to be a startup or a tech event, and just going to it, you might meet somebody. One of my last coachees got her job from telling every person she knew in her pizza place, she was serving pizza, that she was looking for a job, and she got an amazing job that she loves. And it was just from talking to someone who had a friend or a relative who owned a company and said, hey, I met this girl. I love the way she served me pizza. I think you should interview her. So it's not always going to happen the way you think it is either. And then our online and virtual events, they can be online meetups. They might be, you might find them on Facebook. I think a little bit less now than usual, but I'm not on Facebook much, so there could be tons of events on Facebook. I'm not sure. There are LinkedIn groups too. So networking online doesn't always even mean going to an event. It can just be like LinkedIn groups allow you to join different groups that are centered around people's interest or a specific skill or a certification type. and you can join those groups and then just jump in the conversation, and you can become part of networking that's not even associated with an event. And then presentations and workshops. So anytime you can go to something that somebody is, like if Center State is delivering a presentation that has something to do with tech. I know a woman named Urban T here did a presentation a few weeks ago about Black ownership and technology. You can go to those things, listen to people speak, and then connect with them afterwards. That's also networking. And there's a new app called Clubhouse. There are lots of groups you can join. It's all audio, and you can just listen in. So you can be listening and hearing people talk, and maybe you'll find somebody that you're like, oh, I like what they said, or maybe they talk about the company they own, and then you can network them, try to find them on LinkedIn. So there's all kinds of different ways that you can try to meet people and just get connected in areas that might be beneficial to you at some point. So in any situation, whether it's in person or online, the best practices are to be positive and keep an opportunistic mindset. You just never know how these relationships are going to play out. And a lot of times, like I said, they play out in a way you would never even thought of. You want to plan ahead. Anytime you do ask somebody for their time, so if you've met someone and said, hey, I want to grab 15 minutes with you, you want to make sure you've planned ahead and thought of decent questions to ask them. You don't want to ask a business owner 10 different questions you could look up on their website. That's a huge waste of their time. So you want to have already done that and then come with really good questions so that they're like, oh, wow, this person really did their homework, and they'll be impressed by that. And that will help you make an impression. Other ways to make an impression are like, if you're meeting in person, bring your resume. Don't give it to them until they ask for it or it's an appropriate time in the conversation. Talk about the projects that you're working on. Just be yourself is the best way, I think, to make a good impression. And then be consistent with your follow-ups. Most people don't. The imposter syndrome keeps people from following up because they're too afraid that there's something they did or something they said that is the reason why they're not getting, the other person isn't following up with them. So just be persistent until you get a hard no. It's not a no. It's just maybe they're busy. We'll talk about that too. Be persistent. So I usually will follow up with people 3 times. After the 3rd time, if I don't hear back, then I will let something go. But you can, you definitely don't want to be one of those persons who gets labeled with a reputation of being borderline harassing. But 2 or 3 times is perfectly legitimate and fine. And then, like I said, be creative in how you're searching for people. And as long as you're telling people why you're connecting with them, if we're talking virtual, then it's okay. It doesn't matter how you found them. You're just going to be transparent and tell them why you connected with them. So when you do go to in-person events, which are going to start happening again very soon, things are opening up, just don't worry about what people think about you. If you are by yourself and you don't talk to a single person while you're there, that's okay. Just maybe your first goal is just to get there if you're feeling shy or introverted. You're all in this group together too. Ask somebody else to come with you. And then if nothing else, you just talk to each other for the whole night. Or maybe you dare each other to go talk to other people. Have fun with it. Bring your boldest self. Encourage each other to go and talk to so-and-so or get some information about somebody. If you are shy, like I said, just be the wallflower and don't feel bad about it. It's okay. And nobody cares. Like, everyone thinks all eyes are on them. But in most cases, you can go into an event as a ghost and nobody will know, and it's okay. Now, you don't want to keep doing that over and over again, but if that's what it takes to get you to your first couple events, then that's okay. If you do want to find people to talk to, find people who are in odd numbers, because that usually means that there's one person hanging out there who can say something to you, and just walk up and just say, do you mind if I listen in? It's that simple. And if the people have any sort of, hey Mel, I see you. If they have any sort of kindness in them, then they will be like, sure, listen on in. And then they will invite you into the conversation. And if they don't, then you can listen for as long as you feel like listening and then excuse yourself and find another conversation. You can also hover around the food table, grab a drink. I always tell people, hold something in your hand. It gives you something to do with your hand so you feel less awkward. It doesn't have to be alcoholic, but it is helpful when you're standing in a group just to kind of have something to cover your face a little bit so you just don't feel like you have to talk, and it feels more comfortable than standing there awkwardly listening in on someone. So Another thing you can do to be prepared is just to have an elevator speech. So if someone says, hey, what do you do? Or what are you here for? Then you kind of have an idea what you're going to say. So just think that through. It doesn't have to be the same every time. You can practice different ones. And then maybe have some starter questions where you've thought of, how long have you been in this group? What do you do? I mean, those are easy questions, but they're hard when you're thinking of them on the spot. So think of them, have a list of them before you go to the event, so you kind of have an idea what you might say if you are starting a conversation with someone. Because you don't know, the person who's there that you start talking to or that group you join, they might not be the best at conversations either. So if you can take the lead on that, that's great. So 2 pro tips here. First one, volunteer to help at the event. If it is something where you could contact the people who are putting it together, then you automatically have people that you can know and who are going to be talking to you. If you can work the check-in table at an event, that's the best place to be. You'll meet every single person who comes in the door. And then again, if you are going to an event where you're not going to know anybody, either bring a buddy, or you can kind of see who's putting it on, and maybe you can find somebody who belongs to that and see if you can find someone who's going to be there and ask if you mind, could we meet up while we're at this event and I could talk to you for a few minutes. And then for virtual events, if you're on a Zoom or something, show your video. A lot of people want to hide behind the video off, but one of the things that you can do to stand out from the beginning is to have your video on. Ask questions. So I give presentations all the time, and there's so many people who the presenter wants people to ask questions. And then if you follow up with somebody afterwards, you can be like, oh, I was that person that asked a question about whatever. So again, you will stand out and people will know who you are. And when you're listening in, pay attention to who's talking, who else is asking questions. And maybe if there's somebody who has a title, a job position, something that you want to talk to, you can connect with them later. Again, all you need is something to say why you connected with them. It doesn't matter what it is, but you can say, hey, I was also attended this event that Center State put on, and I heard you say this or ask you a question about whatever. I wanted to see if I could get a few minutes of your time to talk about it a little bit more or something else. Same with the presenters. Presenters give presentations all the time, and unless they're at that level where they're super famous, they hardly get any feedback. So if you can contact a presenter, especially here locally, and follow up with them and say, hey, I love what you said, give them some flattery, tell them how great they were, and then ask them if you could get a few more minutes of their time. So we all have imposter syndrome around networking. So my favorite quote is, those who matter don't mind, and those who mind don't matter. If you're going to an event or you are trying to talk to somebody at an event and you're worried about what they think of you, those people don't matter, because really kind, nice people will be appreciative and not be judging you for trying to show up at a networking event or trying to say hello. So remember that it's all in your head. Everyone has had to job search before. You're not alone. Again, decent people can recognize that, and people want to be helpful. They really do. So if you encounter people who don't, it's not you, it's them. They are too busy, they have other things on their mind, but it isn't because they don't want to help you. Remember also that a no response is not a no. So if you reach out to someone, ask them to meet with you, or to even via email, if you reach out and you don't get a response, that doesn't mean it's a no. Quite often I get requests all the time, and the first time I might not answer. I'm super busy, so I might mark it for later, and then a week goes by and I haven't gotten to it, and then the person will follow up with me and say, hey, I was just checking on this. I'm really appreciative that they followed up, because I wanted to, but things just kept getting backed up. So you're actually, if you get to a person who genuinely wants to help you out and get back to you, you're doing a favor for them by following up, because then they don't have to go digging for the email you just sent them a week ago. And again, a no isn't about you. They're too busy. They have other stuff going on. They totally forgot. Occasionally, you're going to reach out to people who just don't do that. And that still means it's not about you. It's about them. There are people out there who are not going to answer because maybe they don't have time, or they have an assistant, or whatever reason it is, but that's them. It isn't you. Just don't worry about the outcome of everything. Just focus on meeting people, building relationships, having some good conversations with like-minded people, and I promise you the outcome will take care of itself. So I do want to drive this point home though, when you're not getting things back, because once you go out there and you start sending some messages through with LinkedIn, you'll start to wonder if it's you or if it's them. And it can be you. So I want to point out the difference. When it's them, they're just too busy, so you don't get a reply at all. Maybe they're not actively on LinkedIn. So I'll show you what to look for to see if they're a person who even uses LinkedIn, because obviously if you message someone on LinkedIn who doesn't use it, they're not going to get back to you there. They probably just forgot. And maybe there's that small percentage of people who just don't do that. Maybe they consider themselves too important or whatever. So we can just ignore those people, but let them be who they are. Maybe you'll get to that point one day, or maybe you've done that to other people by mistake before. A lot of times they've started to think about it and then something happens. I know I start writing emails all the time and then I completely get distracted and I forget. And then on LinkedIn, it's not always a guarantee that they're going to see your request. I know sometimes I will, depending on whether you look on your phone or you look on your computer, you might miss, like if you open on your computer and it marks something as read and I look at it later on my phone, I might never even see that I got a message. So that's another reason why you want to follow up. And if it went an email, it quite often might have gone into someone's spam box and they never saw it to begin with. So you just don't want to take those things personally because they have nothing to do with you. But here are the cases when it can be because of you. I just want you to be mindful of them. When you have not researched or planned ahead enough, it shows. So if you reach out to someone, don't use their name. Don't tell them why you're connecting with them. It looks like a spam email or you've got spelling errors. They're quite likely maybe not going to get back to you. If you haven't introduced yourself, who are you? Why are you messaging me? I'm often not going to take the time to read through the rest of your email if you haven't introduced yourself in the begin with. If you are too focused on what you want. So sometimes I will get messages from people that say, hey, might use my name, might not. I'm trying to find a job in XYZ. Can you help me? Like, I have a website. I have all kinds of ways I can help you. There's free stuff on there. I really don't appreciate when someone just says like, hey, stop what you're doing and help me. So you want to make sure that you're not doing that. If there's no incentive for reply. So incentives for replies come in different things. So if you're asking to meet somebody here locally, asking them to meet for coffee and you'll buy is an incentive for a reply. Being super gracious and saying thank you and being excited to talk to somebody is an incentive for a reply. That definitely would make me more inclined to reply to somebody if I got an email that, didn't sound like they really wanted to talk to me. They just found me in a phone book. If that ever happens anymore. And then there's no incentive for me to reply there. And then again, if you can't explain why you contacted a person specifically. So if a person gets a LinkedIn message or an email and it looks like you're sending the same canned email to a bunch of people, which could not have your signature on it, it could not have their name on it. There's a lot of different things that'll make an email or a message look like, why did you send this to me? Then they're going to be less inclined to take the time to get back to you. And then if you're going too long and you're not getting to the point, sometimes I get messages where I'm like, oh, what do you want? So you can have something you want in there, but it's got to be balanced with an incentive, being respectful of the person's time. So sometimes you have to get to the point also in the message that you're saying. So sometimes you can also put the point up close and then add more stuff to it. But if you're contacting busy people, you want to be respectful of their time in that way. This one specifically to LinkedIn. If you visit a person's LinkedIn page, they get a notification. So those of you who use LinkedIn, you probably know that. But if you haven't been using LinkedIn, you might not know. When someone visits your profile, you get a notification telling you someone visited your profile. Sometimes LinkedIn tells you who it was and sometimes they don't. But when you start to get someone visiting your page that you don't know more than once, a couple of times, it gets to be a little bit like, what's this person looking for? So that's just something to keep in mind if you are looking to message somebody. There are different ways too that you can turn off so it doesn't show who you are. But at that point, you just want to go ahead and send them a message if that's what you need to do. And then the last thing I think is that your profile isn't complete. So if you message someone on LinkedIn, they're often going to look at your profile before they message you back to see who you are and who you're connected with. And if you have a missing photo or you don't say anything about yourself, they're just going to be less inclined to get back to you. And that last thing is not following up. So people might have seen your message once, again, busy, whatever it was, forgot about it, and you're missing an opportunity by not following up if for them to get back to you and go, oh yeah, I'm so sorry. Most of the time they'll be like, sorry, I totally missed it. And then they'll be more happy to help you because they dropped the ball the first time. So if networking is this hard, then why should I bother doing it at all? Well, as I said, it's still the most effective way to get the job, but also, I have to move all these boxes out of the way so I can see what this says. The Adler Group CEO says that networking is how you turn 4 to 5 great contacts into 50 to 60 connections in 2 to 3 weeks. In a LinkedIn article, he said that networking should represent 60% of your job hunting efforts, about 20 to 30 hours per week. Now, we're not going to ramp that up quite that high because you don't have 20, 30 hours per week. But the point is that networking will amplify your job search strategy, and it's faster and I think an easier way to get a job than submitting a resume and a cover letter. Now, you're still going to have to submit those things at some point if you meet someone who's willing to give you an interview, but you can bypass a lot of submitting and waiting and not hearing anything back if you can just have some good networking connections and get right into a job that's a good fit for you. So you want to manage your mindset. Like I said, when you start submitting applications, you get a lot of some no's and rejections, but more than that, you get a lot of nothing. And if you let it, that can really weigh on you. So let your values guide you. And what I mean by that is to be applying for jobs that you feel like are a good fit for you. In your networking, make sure that you're connecting with other people and companies that are a good fit for you, and that will help you meet other people that will help you stay uplifted. And then just keep in mind that it's part of the process. Everyone goes through this. You've probably been through it yourself before. It's not like the third or fourth time you look for a job, it gets any easier. In fact, it might get harder. So just keep that in mind and be realistic about it. Go with the flow. Just understand that any job that you don't get is a job you weren't supposed to get. So don't take it too hard. Once you finally land the job that you get, you'll be so glad that you didn't get the other ones. Again, don't let people not replying to you mess with your self-doubt. So networking as a strategy, you want to think outside of the informational interview box. So traditionally people would tell you to try to get informational interviews. An informational interview is asking somebody to meet with you for coffee or lunch, and you'd call it an informational interview. And that puts a projection on the person's mind that they're supposed to meet with you and somehow see if you're fit for some job they may or may not have. People are getting kind of burnout on that concept. And then also it puts people in an awkward position if they don't have a job available or if they aren't a hiring person. So try to think more of just meet and greets and getting to know people and asking them their career, like questions about their career so you can learn from them, and just make them learning sessions. And that will garner you more responses, I think. And then make sure that you're acknowledging people's interests and connecting with them on their experience. Or so if you went to the same school or they have some sort of certification that you're interested in, you can ask questions about that. So you want to do some research on the company they work for, on their LinkedIn, and be looking for different ways to say, here's why I think we should connect. And when you do connect, to ask them good questions. So let's talk about where to network. So for example, little Sarah here graduated from her coding bootcamp, and she's interested in an entry-level job as a front-end developer. So you guys can unmute or put in the chat. What are her networking options?
Tech meetups.
Meetups, yep.
Yeah. Oh, Latonia said the same thing.
Virtual sessions, yes. Yes, locally, Syracuse.io, it's another place. What else? What in-person things could she be doing? Hackathon's great. It's a good one. local organizations, universities, colleges. Yep. What about additional learning and presentations? Workshops. Yep. So you want to be thinking about anything and everything where you meet other people can be networking options. Events that interest her outside of tech, but where you meet people, running a club or something. Absolutely. So like I said about the coachee in the pizza joint, you can network everywhere. Tell everybody that this is the kind of job you're looking for and this is what you're doing. Maybe TED Talks, conferences. Yes, conferences, great. That's a really good one, Elena. As students, I'm not sure if some of the conferences will let you apply or sign up or register as students, but that right there is a great example of an opportunity to network. Anytime you have a question like that about, can I join this event? Can I, like, how much does it cost? Is it for students? Is your company hiring? All those questions are things that you can ask people to talk to you about, and that's networking. You can say, hey, I saw that you have this event coming up. I'm wondering if there's a student price. I'm taking this boot camp. I don't know if I qualify. And that just opens the door for you to start a conversation with someone. Even if they say, yes, you'd have to pay to register, then you can still say, can I volunteer? Is there, some other thing that I can do? And then you could say, oh, by the way, while we're talking, can I ask you a question about, jobs, or where would you network? So one of the things when I moved to Syracuse that I did is I used the example of, well, not the example, but I used the excuse that I had just moved here from Tampa, and going on the premise that everybody wants to be helpful, I reached out to so many people on LinkedIn and said, hey, I just moved here. I do a lot of stuff in environmental. I see that you work in an environmental company. So I told them why I was connecting with them, what our connection was, and why I was contacting them. And then I just said, do you know, like, where should I network? Where do environmental professionals get together? And I learned so much, and everybody answered me, and they're all super happy to do so, because everybody wants to be part of your success story. When you leave this boot camp and you get your next job, the next person you meet wants to be the person who said, well, I got her that job when you're posting it online. So, you think of it that way, you're letting people be part of your story. So all of you have right now the perfect opportunity to reach out to anyone and everyone and say, I'm part of the Careers in Code Bootcamp. I'm new to coding. Where can I meet other people? And they'll be happy to tell you that. Let's see. Volunteering to talk and mentoring. Yep, those are all great. There's also good ways to boost your resume as well. So online, you can also start with companies that you're interested, or Sarah can start with companies that she's interested to work for, and also research the employees that work there as a starting point for people to network online. And then Sarah should probably make a strategy so that she's not randomly doing stuff, but can have a plan to follow. So I'm going to connect with 5 people this week. When I moved to Syracuse and I was working that plan, I had plans to meet with one person a week for coffee. And it worked so well that I ended up meeting just about everyone in town, including Jesse with Careers in Code. And I had a wait list. I actually had to put the whole thing on hold after about 6 months because I had too many people to meet with, and I had people introducing me to people I'd already met. So a strategy can really help you push forward through it. All right, so let's talk about how you find the right people. So on LinkedIn, one of the things that you want to do is increase your second degree connections by connecting with people that you've already met. So you want to go on there and connect with Max and Gus and Jesse and myself, because I'll show you how that works, but you'll end up having, so on LinkedIn, you want to increase your second connection. So your first connections are people you're actually connected to, but every time you're connected to a person, so if I connect to you, Susan, then all of my connections become your second connection. So it gives you a wider range of people to see and to be able to reach out to. And
Sorry, so I can see them all? We can see them all?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll show you how to do that.
Okay.
And then you want to follow the companies that you're interested in. So any company that you are, when you're doing your applications or your job description research, or where you're at, wherever you're applying to, you want to follow those companies on LinkedIn. So you see their stuff in your news feed, and then you can see the people there who are posting and what they're posting about. So that will help you, maybe you didn't get this one job, or this isn't the job you're interested in, but if they post something on LinkedIn, you'll see it immediately. And then actively participate in some conversation and chat on LinkedIn as well. And then that way people might see something that you said and end up connecting with you, which, like I said, make comments. You can write articles and posts. Latonia has been doing this. These just kind of establish that you are a proactive person, that you're what's the term? Self-motivated. And then if you are in groups, and I find the groups to be tricky. You've got to find groups that are actually active. There's a lot of groups on LinkedIn that no one's really doing anything with. So if you can find one that's active, then you can partake in the comments and sharing in there. And then you can use the actual jobs locations to find people who work there. I'm going to go through all of this on how to navigate LinkedIn. And then one of the things I like that you can do, which is amazing, that you could never do before LinkedIn, is look at a person's profile and their background and all of their experience. So if someone's working in a job that you're interested, or for a company that you're interested in working for, you can go look at their page, see what certifications they have, see where they went to school. There's just so much information that you could learn there about maybe what you want to do for your next steps for your career, or if there's additional things that you want to learn, and use that for reasons to connect with them. So if somebody's got a certification in Python and you're interested to know, or maybe you're not, you can say, hey, I'd like to meet with you. You're doing a job that I feel like I would like to do, but I'm not really sure. I just finished this boot camp, but I saw you have this certification. I'd like to ask you a couple of questions about that. And they're just going to be more likely to reply if you're specific about why you're contacting them than if you're vague and just saying, I just want your help. And Alumni is a great way to just have a random, just because you went to the same school with someone doesn't really mean anything, but it kind of does mean something. So anytime you can reach out to someone and say, hey, I'm alumni of the same school, I'd like to ask you some questions, that's kind of an automatic obligation for someone to do that. So at this point, we're going to shift into looking at LinkedIn. So let's stop now and see what questions you have at this point. Let's start that over. So you can go to LinkedIn and set all different sorts of privacy and security settings. There's a lot more now than even when I took the screenshot before. But one of the things that you want to be able to do, or just know how to do, you probably might not even need to do it. But if for some reason you wanted to show up on someone's page as anonymous, there's a setting here, how others see your LinkedIn activity. You could turn it to private. Just make sure you turn it back to public when you do start reaching out to people, because then it will just look strange. You can go to My Network and it will show you the people you're connected with, but you can also click on Sent and it will show you the people you've sent messages to, and then so you can see the message you sent. Otherwise, there's no way to see what that was. When you're filling out your profile, there's a space for you to enter your contact info, and that's going to look like this. So you can add in your websites. You also can make a custom URL, so where it's just your name instead of your name with a bunch of numbers on it. So you probably want to do that as well. It'll make it look nicer on your resume. And you can add your social media accounts. And then when you're searching for businesses and people, so if there's a company you want to work for, let's say you're looking at TGC Player, you go to their page and then you can see their employees, and you can click on that. It will show you people who work there, and then you'll be able to see first and second connections. And the second connections, like I said, come from your first connections. Whoever you know in your first connections or people you're actually connected to, you can see the second connections as well. And actually, you can see the third connections, and I can show you how to do that if you need it. One of the things you can do on your page is get and receive recommendations. So this is just a nice way to round out your page and also to do something nice for somebody else. You could do it for one of your instructors for Careers in Code, or someone you used to work with. But if you go to a person's profile, click the more button, there's this thing called recommend down here. And that will allow you, it'll ask you how you know that person, but it will allow you to basically give them a nice testimonial, and it'll be on your page. So essentially you're going to click on the jobs in the top bar, and that's going to come up with different jobs, and you can do other filters, but you can also look and see where there's alumni at a certain schools, and that's a good way to connect with people. So to see if someone is active on their profile, you can look, do they have a summary? How many connections do they have? Generally, if a person has less than 200 or so, they're probably not very active on LinkedIn. And that's just so you can kind of gauge whether you think you should connect with them on LinkedIn or maybe somewhere else. They can also have, if their contact info has email, then you likely will want to contact them both on email and LinkedIn. You can look at their past activity and see if they've been actively posting or sharing anything. And oh, thanks, Ariel. I didn't see you have that chat in there. And then groups. Are they active in any groups as well? Do they list? So just how complete basically is their profile, and how many common connections you have. Sometimes when I get a connection request from people, if I don't have any common connections, it's kind of like, how do I know this person? So as we mentioned before, take advantage of joining some groups. You can also follow some hashtags. So you could follow text or startup or full stack or something. Follow people that you might want to meet, and you can follow. So you can actually follow people and not actually connect with them as well. Your phone works a little different than your computer. So on your computer, when you go to friend request, but connect with someone, it will automatically stop and ask you to put in a note. But on your phone, if you do it, it automatically invites them. So if you wanted the chance to put in that note, you can do it on your phone, but you have to do personalized invite rather than just hit connect, because as soon as you hit connect on your phone, it sends the request. You can also do more in different searches on your phone than on your computer. So if you're not finding what you're looking for, you could try on your phone. I already mentioned that. Sometimes I find that if I go and look at someone's page, all of a sudden they're sending me a request. So that's another way if you just want to look at a couple profiles. You never know, they might request you first. So Herman here has been following TGC Player. He wants to get a job there and apply when there's a job available, and he just saw that there's a new opening. So how do you think that Herman should approach networking to get a foot in the door?
You could maybe talk
to Doug.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Tony, what was that?
I'm sorry, Carolyn, where you going? Okay, I'm sorry. I was just gonna say he's been following them, so he can maybe talk about, things that he really appreciates about them and tie that into this opening, and how he would be a good fit for that opening, and maybe, I don't know how involved he would get, but just, maybe ask for an opportunity to connect with someone and talk about how he might be a good fit or something like that.
Yeah, that's good. So back that up a little bit. Who would he contact?
He should probably look for contact name. So,
Doug,
and if not, I guess he could call. He could maybe call or email and ask who the contact would be.
Yep. Any other suggestions?
Yeah. I think they do tours periodically too. So, if an interest in a tour, we got to go on one of those at one point for something. And, while you're there, you kind of meet the people and they sort of get that subtly networking. So, yeah.
Yeah. So if Herman is following them on LinkedIn, he'll probably see when they're having tours. And Susan says to contact someone in a similar position to what he wants. So that is good too. So those are all good suggestions. So Herman should probably just sit down and think about, how can I connect at TGC Player, and write down some ideas. And then think forward through those potential scenarios. So if I go to a tour, how would I actually get to talk to someone on the tour? If I pick up the phone, like Latonia said, and call, what is my expected outcome? What would I say to the person who answers the phone? So you want to not only make your plan and weigh out some options, but think about what is my intended outcome? How do I get to this thing and make it kind of go the way that I want it to? Well, if you went on the tour, you probably want to ask some good questions, and you probably want to say, hey, what does it take to work here? And make sure you take that opportunity while you're there to ask that question. If you're thinking about calling, you're going to want to know what you're going to say about your position or what you're looking for or the kind of person you were looking to talk to. And then also just do that research on TGC Player and figure out what it is you're going to ask when you do meet with them. I think you guys all get that. But yeah, to Caroline's point, Doug, you also want to look at those connections and see who you know who might know someone else. If you can ask for an introduction, so another thing that Herman here could do would be to say, oh, I think I know somebody who used to work there, or I know somebody who knows someone else who knows the owner, and start asking for those introductions is another really good way.
Yeah, and you can do introductions on LinkedIn. Correct?
I'm sorry, say that again?
You can do introductions on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
That's very helpful.
Yep. Domo, let me read your question. Question about the photo. Can you use something like an avatar? It's nicely done. Yeah, you can. People use some different things. You might want to like look around and see what other people are using. It's not really common, but I think that you could do that, especially like you said, if it's well done. So essentially, don't be afraid to reach out. As long as you have the right mindset and you're doing it with integrity and creatively, then you're good. You don't have to worry about like, am I doing something wrong? I've said it 100 times, but make sure you're following up. So you might want to track who you've reached out to, just so you can remember to follow up with them. And then once you do have their attention, make sure you're asking them good questions.